In a world where carbs are your enemy, you need one man to help you fight your battles. That man is Jimmy.
Combating nutrition disinformation and general bull. It's Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live. And we're here with another episode of Jimmy Rants. If you're brand new to Jimmy Rants, hop on over to JimmyRants.com. You'll see how this show works. It's pretty darn cool, you guys. We start off on Instagram. I do a couple of live videos on most days, and so go follow me there. And when I go live, you can be there, just like all these people are doing right now, coming in. If you missed the live on Instagram, it's all good. It's up on Instagram for 24 hours for you to watch. But then it disappears after 24 hours on Instagram. Never fear, we got you covered. We're going to pop it on over to YouTube after that. All of the archived episodes of this show are on YouTube right now. So go type in a keyword Jimmy Rants on YouTube or in a Google search. You will find the show. And then finally, if you like to listen to like a podcast version of this show, we do have that as well on Apple Podcasts. Go look up Jimmy Rants Podcast on the on Apple Podcasts. And it has the best of the best moments of this here show, JimmyRants.com. Today's Jimmy Rants was born out of a message that I received through Instagram. So as you can imagine, I get a lot of people that write to me through the various places on social media, in my email box. They write comments on various posts that I write. They contact me. And sometimes people will make comments of that keto didn't work, or that, well, they know that they can't do keto in a certain way because they just know. So what I want to talk about here today is this question of, is your perception of keto the reality of what's happening? Because as I'm talking to more and more people, I'm finding that there are some people who believe certain things and they come into keto with those beliefs about it. So, for example, this lady I was talking to, she said, I can't eat red meat. I just can't eat red meat. She's a type 1 diabetic, and she says, red meat makes me insulin resistant. And so, because red meat makes me insulin resistant, I eat mostly plants and vegetables and plant matter, but I'm keto. So then I inquire a little more, and I correct her saying that red meat does not make you insulin resistant, but I do push a little more for more information. What does that mean? It makes you insulin resistant. Oh, my blood sugar goes up in the mornings. So then I explain, okay, well, elevated blood glucose in the morning is not abnormal for a lot of people that do a ketogenic diet. We've talked about this before on Jimmy Rants, where that is a glucose sparing effect, where the body is responding to the cortisol in the morning a little more than normal, but it builds up this glucose, which is why your blood sugar goes up, so that all the glucose dependent functions in the body can get the glucose, but the rest of the day, the blood sugar is normal. But in this person's mind, they're like, meat makes me insulin resistant, therefore I cut out the meat, and that's the thing I have to do. So then I ask, well, how does that work with your blood sugar? Is your blood sugar under control the rest of the day? Well, no, it's still a little bit wonky, and I'm not really understanding why. And I'm like, well, you just cut out meat, which is a lot of fat and protein that you would normally be consuming. You're eating mostly plant-based. What are plants mostly? They're carbohydrates. And so you're probably eating way too many carbs. And her immediate knee-jerk reaction was, I'm not eating too many carbs. And so if you're not eating red meat and you're eating mostly plant-based, how are you not getting, quote, too many carbs? Anyway, interesting discussion, which kind of inspired this Jimmy Rants today. Because I wonder how many people have perceptions of keto like this lady did, of, well, I can't have red meat because it makes me insulin resistant. That's something that's deep in her head that she believes with all of her heart, even though there's no evidence of it. There's no evidence that eating meat makes you insulin resistant, but she believes that. That's her perception of that. So that's why she cuts it out. And she's got this cognitive dissonance about the role that those vegetables and other plant matter that she is eating in her diet are having on her blood sugars. So her A1C is a little bit wacky. And she's having to, because she's a type 1, she's having a bolus with more insulin, despite eating her version of keto. You see where I'm going here? So I wonder how many other people have perceptions about keto as to why they either don't do it, or if they do it, do things in a different way than what the prescribed low-carb, moderate protein, high-fat ketogenic diet. I wonder how many people have these perceptions, and it taints the reality of what is actually happening. So there's this notion out there as well, and we've addressed this before on Jimmy Rants, that if you're going to eat more protein in your diet, that's a good thing. And then you've got people that have a knee-jerk reaction the opposite way. Well, I can't eat meals like that. And I'll give you an example of this. I'm currently doing a carnivore experiment, deep into it now. Coming up, I think today is day 11. My days are running together, but I'm deep into it now. And so I've been posting my menus, and I show the percentage of fat consumed and the percentage of protein consumed. And then I actually show the physical food in picture form on social media. So I've been posting where I have a couple of 2-3 hamburgers, some cheese, and maybe some smoked sausage, maybe a steak, here and there, everywhere, showing what I'm eating. And the knee-jerk reaction, the perception that is immediately noted is, oh my gosh, if I ate that much protein, my glucose would be through the roof. I'd have an A1C level that would be high. I would have insulin that would respond really, really high. So therefore, I could never do that. Okay. The reality is not matching that perception. I get why they have that perception, because protein is moderate. But they look at the plate, they see that food, and they think, oh, protein. They're not looking at that 3/4 of it is fat. They're just seeing meat on the plate and thinking, oh, that's too much protein, so therefore it's going to turn to glucose for gluconeogenesis. You're preaching to the choir. So I test my blood sugar, completely normal. I test my blood ketones, very high, 1.5. I test my breath ketones. I had the highest breath ketones that I've had in this entire experiment today. So this notion, the perception that people have of, well, I couldn't eat that way because it would raise my glucose and raise my insulin, it's a perception that's not based in reality. The reality is I'm thriving doing this. And yet people allow those perceptions that they have about keto to taint what actually happens. This is why I'm a big fan, you guys, of tinker and test and find what works for you. Because if you try something and you get an adverse response, then you know for you that that's now a reality. But I would not hold back on doing anything when it relates to keto without first testing it, without seeing how you respond to anything. You know, last year when I did a test of the high protein, where I did 3 grams of protein for 1 gram of fat experiment, I had no preconceived notion of what would happen. I had my theories, but I didn't know what would happen until I actually did it. And when I started eating that much protein and was not feeling well doing that, I had my answer. I knew it wasn't good for me. 15 bouts of hypoglycemia in 1 week, by the way, for those of you that didn't hear about that, ketohackingmd.com. We did a whole experiment all about that, and it weren't pretty. But now what I'm doing now, I'm kind of flipping the script. I'm having 3 times as much fat as I am protein, according to calories, and I'm thriving. But I wouldn't have known that unless I'd given this a go. So the bottom line in this Jimmy Rants is, maybe you have perceptions about keto that aren't based in reality. And I encourage you, find out what's actually happening rather than jumping to conclusions based on some arbitrary thinking. You know, and a lot of people, they hold off on doing a ketogenic diet initially because they have a lot of preconceived notions, like things that are spouted out there in the mainstream. Oh, you need healthy whole grains for fiber, or you need to be careful of all that fat because it's going to clog your arteries. So those are preconceived notions of keto that is not based in the reality of what's actually happening. So correcting all of those things, regardless of where you are, if you're on keto and you've got preconceived notions, let them go. Test them. See how they do for you. If you're not on keto and you're watching this right now and you're like, oh yeah, I always believe that blank, well, try blank and see what happens. Because at the end of the day, you won't know until you know. And the only way you can know is to test it. So test blood sugar, test ketones, test, most importantly, test how you feel, because those things don't let you down. So is your perception of keto the reality of what's happening? You've got to figure that out for yourself. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. Welcome in, welcome in. Thanks for being here, guys. Appreciate it here. I'm a little bit late getting started with this, so sorry about that, but life happens some days. Jesse says, there are so many perceptions. A lot of people who contact me are just so confused. I think there are very core concepts, but so many variations. The core concept of a ketogenic diet that's well formulated is one that is mostly real whole foods based. That's first. Low in carbs to your tolerance level. That's second. Moderate in protein to your personal threshold. So protein isn't a free-for-all, but you don't skimp on it either. So you find that happy medium of what your threshold for protein is. And then finally eat enough fats and a mix of fats, not just saturated fats, monounsaturated fats, and you get a little bit of polyunsaturated fats in nuts and seeds and things like that. That is the mix of the fats that you eat then to satiety. And if you do all of those things that I just mentioned, that is the basis of what a ketogenic diet is. Now, anything else that you do to that, you may veer away from what the keto template is, but what I just described is the ketogenic core concepts that you need to know about. Most people think of carbs as table sugar, says Alberto, or things that taste sweet. Yeah. Or you get the Jillian Michaels of the world who say, well, everybody knows you don't eat refined sugars and refined grains. Those are horrible. Well, yeah, they're horrible, but so are whole grains. So are starchy foods. So is the sugar that's natural in fruit. Those are all as well problematic for a lot of people. Does it mean they're in and of themselves horrible things for you? No. But depending on your metabolism, depending on how your body responds to said foods, it could be problematic for you. Bonnie says, everybody's different on carbs. Jump the gun. She needs to be more open to your knowledge. Well, maybe she is. I did plant a seed. Sherry says, a Facebook thread of a Florida News brought up the keto diet. Reading through the comments, people are saying everything from fad diet to it will ruin your organs and especially your thyroid. And again, the negative imagery. It's why I respond to people like Jillian Michaels. People are like, oh, why do you waste your breath? You're not going to change her mind. It's not about her. It's not about her. Whenever we respond on Keto Talk to headlines that are whacked about keto, it's all about the in-person who needs to hear this message. And to me, that's a whole lot more important than any singular person or singular topic that's put out there. I want the in-person to get good knowledge, which is why I'm so passionate and why I continue to do so much work in this realm, is that in-person that needs to hear this message. They're hearing all this negative, ugly, nasty stuff about keto, and it's got to be corrected. And a lot of that ugly, nasty stuff is impacting their perception of keto that's really not the reality of what's happening here. Keto my success because you also have big accounts giving advice like don't eat more fat if you have fat to lose on keto. So many conflicting opinions. Yeah, that one gets me a lot. And it sounds so logical to the people that say it. And then people hear that and go, well, yeah, I've got fat on my body, so why do I need to eat fat in my diet? I've addressed this on previous Jimmy Rants, but you stoke fat burning on the body when you eat fat in the diet. You don't skim back on fat. You're not gorging yourself on fat either. Let's be clear about that. But when you eat fat to satiety, and we talked about satiety the other day on Jimmy Rants. When you eat fat to satiety, the body has a very clear mechanism of burning stored body fat. I'll give you an example, this carnivore experiment. I've been eating about 75 to 80% fat on this carnivore, keto carnivore experiment that I'm doing. 70 to 80%. So you would think, okay, if you have to skimp on the fat to burn stored body fat, then that's way too much fat. You would think that. But I just blew into the ketonics today, and it is showing incredible fat burning. I pricked my finger and got a blood ketone reading, and it's in the 1.5 range. I have my blood sugar in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s just about all the time throughout this experiment. And so if that notion were true, again, a perception about keto that people have, cut your fat because you got plenty of fat on the body, and yet I'm shedding pounds really fast. I haven't shared weight loss numbers, but let's just suffice it to say I'm losing weight. That perception's just not true. It's not based in what's actually happening in reality. And if people actually believe that you need to skimp back on the fat in your diet in order to tap into fat on the body, why am I shedding pounds like it's nobody's business, eating 75% of my calories, 75 to 80% of my calories as fat? Why is that happening? Crickets. I've been doing mostly carnivore with an occasional small serving of vegetables. I'm interested in what my numbers show when I get my blood work done. Ashton, yeah, show them to me as well. I'd love to see how you're doing. But again, people have these perceptions, and they think the perception is reality when most times it is not. Unless you look up what a true medical ketogenic diet is, there seems to be a gray area in the general public on what keto is. Well, Keto My Success, thank you for that. There is a distinction, you guys, from a therapeutic ketogenic diet. In the literature, it's referred to as the ketogenic diet. This is for managing epilepsy, neurodegenerative types of diseases. Some people are using it for cancer. It's kind of this 4-to-1 ratio of fat to protein. And it ends up being right around 90-ish% fat, and then the rest protein, no carbs. That is the therapeutic use of the ketogenic diet. For people that are doing it for general health and weight loss, it's a lot less stringent than that. You could probably do like a 2 or 3 to 1 fat to protein ratio and get all of the benefits that you need from keto just for those general health things without being a therapeutic use. So when you hear people talk about ketogenic, keep in mind there is a distinction between the therapeutic use, that the ketogenic diet, which is 90% fat, 10% protein, and then the ones that are just more generalized for health. The problem with that, though, is it allows nuance to get in there where people will interpret, well, you need to have a carb up, you need to have a protein up, you need to do this, you need to do that. And it does confuse people. It's why I tell people, find people you trust who seem to make sense and you connect with, and listen to what they have to say. I think a vegan keto diet is tricky. Some people believe it can be done by calculating net carbs. Oh, don't count net carbs. In my experience, ovo, lacto, and pescatarian keto is doable, but I do best with meat in my diet, says Jesse. So Jesse, yeah, I recommended to this type 1 diabetes person who wrote to me that she get the book Ketotarian by my Keto Talk co-host, Dr. Will Cole, which is a mostly plant-based diet. He does include eggs and highly encourages that for complete proteins. He does include fish as well for more of a pescatarian, like you're describing, keto. And yeah, my biggest concern is, yeah, how do you not overconsume carbohydrate? Yes, it's healthy carbs in the form of vegetables, but how do you not overconsume carbohydrates? And so maybe that's my perception of that version of keto that may not be, grounded in the reality of what's happening. So it's really interesting to see how people do it in different ways. Joshua says, I'll do something just because people say you shouldn't. Joshua, you and I are blood brothers, man. I'm the same way. And yes, I jumped off a bridge because my friend did it. Bishop says, when you're new, it's overwhelming sometimes, but I have been trying to follow most of the legends of low carb and keto. And I think that's the way to do it. Follow the people that seem to be making sense, the people that have been around a long time, and not anything against some of the people that are new to the community. But if somebody just popped up on the the last year or two, and now they're pretending to be some grand keto expert, where'd you come from? Where were you before that? If you were this keto expert, why have we never heard of you before the last couple of years? Nancy, Virginia Beach, I was sure I couldn't do keto, but wanted to give it a try. 1 week went to 2 weeks, now 8 months later, and I'm never going back. And see, you probably had to overcome, Nancy, a lot of your preconceived notions about keto that now you realize aren't based on reality. I'll tell you, when I first started on the Atkins diet in 2004, I was fearful of eating the fat. I was. I think that's hashtag truth. Hashtag honesty, because I was still not fully convinced that that was a healthy thing for your heart. But the more I got into it, the better I felt. And when I started getting like heart scans done, advanced lipid profiles done, and seeing that everything was okay, I'm going, hey, this ain't true. It was a perception that I had of this way of eating that was not grounded in reality. And it wasn't until I did it and went through it, and like I said earlier, tested it for myself, that I then realized, okay, that was wrong. And now I have a new reality. My thyroid is especially well functioning, Hashimoto's, and symptom-free since keto, says Beth Neogenesis. And I'm wondering how many people who have thyroid issues like Hashimoto's or other hypothyroid issues, I wonder, Beth, how many of them avoid eating a ketogenic diet because of all the negative things they've heard about. Oh, it destroys your thyroid. And I've never understood that. What keto does for the thyroid, by the way, is it may lower the numbers, but that doesn't mean a lower function. It might mean it's a better, more efficient function where the thyroid doesn't have to go work as hard. It doesn't have to go out of control. You're healing it. And so people see lower numbers and they think lower function. Think better function instead. You're looking thinner and healthier. Thank you for that, Bishop. Like I said, I'm not sharing my weight loss because that's not what's important on this, but it's very obvious I'm losing weight and a lot of it. So thank you for noticing. Thank you for all you do. Thank you, Keto Fasting Montana Living. I have a family member who can't wrap their brain around, why can't you eat small amounts of beans? They're healthy. They have protein and healthy fiber. Yeah, Jesse? See, they think that you can only get protein and only get fiber from beans. It's kind of like the people who used to tell me in the paleo community that I needed to eat resistant starches to feed my gut flora. I'm like, can't I feed my gut flora with green leafy vegetables? The answer is yes. Yes, I can. So the response back to these family members that say beans are healthy because they give you protein and fiber. I get protein from the meats that I eat, and I get plenty of fiber from the green leafy vegetables that I eat. So now what? Now why do I need beans? What's the issue? This may not be the place to ask this, but so curious, how do you manage the idea of moderate protein on carnivore? Well, keep reading my posts and you'll see exactly. I do daily updates about what I'm doing, and you can see the preponderance of my calories come from fat, so that's how you moderate it. Weight loss is a great plus. Health benefits are the most important. Yep. And that's another perception people have of keto. When I go keto, it will magically melt all the pounds off my body. And that's their perception. The reality might be they go keto, they don't lose as much weight as they thought, and yet metabolically on the inside, the reality is they're healing. They're bringing blood sugar and inflammation and insulin levels all down. All good things within the context of total health. But then their perception based on the response on the scale is keto failed me. So did keto fail them? Did keto actually fail them? Their perception that keto failed them, is that real? Depends on your definition of failed. If you're looking at it just from the pure weight loss perspective, okay, maybe marginally didn't do as well, but I wouldn't call that a failure. But even if you look deeper, lowered blood sugar, lowered insulin, lowered inflammation, all of the things that we talk about here so often, that's not a failure. That is an overwhelming success. So you should be celebrating those kinds of things. All right, if you have generalized questions like Keto Challenge 81, this is a show called Jimmy Rants. We stay on topic of the pinned post, which today is your perception of keto, the reality of what's happening. Please send those questions to me either through a private message on Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can send it through there, or you can email me, livinglowcarbman@charter.net. Grandma Does Keto says, my perception of keto was the fear of fat and protein. I got over it with a little education and a whole lot of experience. And you're on here on these Jimmy Rants every single day. So you're getting that daily inspiration and furthering the education. So kudos to you, Grandma Does Keto. My dad says, I don't want to give up my beans. Why can't I fit them into my macros? Oh, I'm so going to do a Jimmy Rants on fitting foods into your macros. That one just, yeah. Ashton said, reversed liver disease, fatty liver disease, and I'm now off of medications. I call that a big win. That is a huge win. And I wonder, when you started, Ashton, if you thought your perception of keto was, well, all that fat's going to make that fatty liver worse. A lot of people believe that about fatty liver disease specifically. Well, you can't eat a lot of fat because, look, all that fat goes right to the liver. Not realizing that the reason you get fatty liver is the carbs that you eat, not the fat that you eat. So let's get that straight, right? All right, guys. So the bottom line in this Jimmy Rants is, are you allowing your perception, maybe not you specifically, but you in the general people sense, are we allowing our perception of keto to taint what the reality is of what's happening with keto? And if that's you, I encourage you to embrace what you think is a truism about keto and that's keeping you from doing it, and do it. Like this lady that was the type 1 diabetic. I so wanted to tell her, okay, you're fearful of meat because you think it's causing insulin resistance. Let's add meat into the diet and let's see what happens. Because I think her perception that that's what it's doing is keeping her from seeing if it's actually doing it or not. So until she actually adds it in and sees what happens as a result of doing that, she won't know for sure, but she's going to continue to believe it because that's her perception of keto. Stop relying on your preconceived notions and your perceptions about what keto is, and then look at what keto actually is doing in the body. JimmyRants.com is the website. As always, you can start off there and see that we go over on Instagram and do a couple of live videos a day. So go follow me on Instagram. I'm at livinglowcarbman, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. And you can watch it and engage live just like all these amazing people did here today. Thank you guys for being here. You can also watch it on replay for up to 24 hours on Instagram. So if you missed it live, go watch the replay. But after 24 hours, poof, it's gone. We do pop every single one of these videos over, which includes not just the Jimmy Rants, but also all the Q&A and interaction. We put all of it up on YouTube, you guys. So go check out the videos on YouTube. Just type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. And then finally, we have a Jimmy Rants podcast with the best of the best moments of this here show, JimmyRants.com. So until next time, we'll see you then.